All right, let's just jump right into it. You hear about international law all the time, right? Treaties on climate change, global trade agreements. But here's the billion-dollar question. Does any of it actually work? Does it really have the power to make countries do things they don't want to do? Or is it all just for show? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
And what's so fascinating is that if you look at the last century, we are living in a kind of golden age for global rules. I mean, look at this. The number of international treaties and courts has just exploded. There are more global rules, more legal bodies on the books today than at any other time in human history.
But, and this is the big but, that brings us to the core puzzle. Think about it. In your own country, if someone breaks the law, you got police, you got courts, you got consequences. But on the world stage, there's no world police, no global 911 to call. So if a really powerful country just decides to ignore a rule, who's going to stop them? Are all of these agreements just suggestions? To start figuring this out, we first have to get our heads around the sheer scale of the system we're talking about. You know, this isn't some abstract academic thing. The phone in your pocket, the coffee you're drinking, even the air you breathe. It is all touched by this incredibly complex web of international agreements. There are rules for literally everything, for trade, for human rights, for protecting the environment, even for how you're supposed to fight a war. Our modern world is built on this legal foundation. So to really understand how this whole system works, or doesn't work, scholars use a specific term that's super helpful, and that word is regime. Now, a regime isn't just the formal treaty, not just the piece of paper, it's the whole shebang. As political scientist Stephen Krasner put it, it's the written rules, sure, but it's also the unwritten norms, the basic principles, the shared expectations that kind of grow up around an issue. It's the whole rules of the game for something like, say, nuclear weapons or international trade. Okay, so that brings us to the great debate, the heavyweight fight, really. And in the first corner, you've got the skeptics, the ones who argue that when you strip everything else away, it's all about one thing, raw power. So you've got these two main camps. On one side, you have the realists. Their view, international law is just a reflection of power. The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. But on the other side, you have the institutionalists, who see law as this vital tool that actually helps countries work together and solve problems they couldn't solve alone. The realists have this fantastic, very academic-sounding word for what they think law is, epiphenomenal. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually super simple. It means that law is just a side effect. It's like a shadow. The shadow doesn't make the object move, right? It just follows it. For realists, power is the object and law is just the shadow it casts. So the realist argument boils down to this. A few powerful countries get together and they write the rules that benefit, well, them. The law doesn't change their behavior, it just describes what they were already going to do. And the second one of those rules stops being useful for a powerful state, they'll drop it like a hot rock. At the end of the day, for them, might makes right.
But wait a minute, that can't be the whole story, can it? So now, let's flip the coin and hear the defense's case, the case for law itself.
Because here's the question the institutionalists will throw right back at you. If law is totally meaningless and it's all just a power game, then why on earth do countries spend years, sometimes decades, hammering out these incredibly detailed, complex international treaties? Why not just use threats and handshake deals? Something else has to be going on. And here's their answer. They say law is a profoundly useful tool, even for selfish states. See, every country faces these huge problems like pandemics or trade that they can't solve alone, but they're also deeply paranoid about getting cheated by other countries. Law helps solve that trust problem. It creates clear rules, makes behavior predictable, and just generally lowers the risk of working together. It turns a scary gamble into a smart, mutually beneficial investment. So we've got these two powerful but totally opposite arguments. Is it all about power, or is it all about rules? Well, as you might have guessed, the reality is a little more complicated and a lot more interesting.
See, the truth is, asking, does international law work, is kind of the wrong question. It's like asking, do tools work? Well, it depends. Are you using a hammer or a screwdriver? The power of any international agreement depends entirely on how it's built. And scholars have a name for this idea, legalization.
And we can actually measure the strength of any law along three key dimensions. First, obligation. Is it a binding command, you must do this, or is it more of a friendly suggestion? Second, precision. Are the rules crystal clear, or are they fuzzy and open to interpretation? And finally, delegation. Is there a neutral third party, like a court, that can call fouls and settle disputes? And this creates a spectrum. On one end, you get what we call hard law. Think about the World Trade Organization. Its rules are highly binding, super specific, and it has a powerful court to enforce them. On the complete opposite end, you have soft law. These are agreements with vague, aspirational goals, no real binding obligation, and no enforcement other than maybe a few politicians meeting for a chat. Both are technically law, but they operate in totally different universes. So, okay, hard law, soft law, realists, institutionalists. Why should you care about any of this? Because this isn't just some dusty academic debate. Far from it. This matters because the answer determines our ability to solve the absolute biggest challenges we all face as a species. Every single attempt to deal with climate change, to stop a pandemic from spreading, to keep the global economy from collapsing, to prevent wars, or to protect basic human rights. All of it depends on us getting these international agreements right. Which leaves us right here, with the final nagging question. As we face down these huge global crises, are these carefully crafted international laws our best and maybe only hope for a stable future? Or are the skeptics right? In a real pinch, do they turn out to be nothing more than scraps of paper? That is definitely something worth thinking about.